We are here for fact number 2 in our quest to debunk racism with facts about race. The second fact is that there is more genetic variation within groups than between. So I was thinking about this and said, like, how do I explain this in super simple terms? Because it's not that easy to understand. It's like, well, we've got these fake racial categories, but then within them, we can see that there's more variation between those fake racial categories of black, white, Asian, whatever, than there is across them. So across all of humanity, we know that we're 99.9% genetically similar, and that the variation that we see is minimal and unimportant, non-meaningful. But so let's think about it in a couple ways. When scientists study our genes, they find that people who are the same race, like 2 white people or 2 black people, 2 Asian people, can be more genetically different from one another than someone in another race. So an Asian person and a black person may be more genetically similar than 2 Asian people or 2 black people or 2 white people. So even though people look at skin color and eye shape and hair texture and whatever, and think that we're super different, we're actually a lot more similar than we think. We can also think about it in terms of like this is not a great example, but let's say we're looking at apples and oranges, right? So you can look at apples and say, well, apples are very different than oranges. They're 2 different types of fruit. But you can see that there's a lot of different types of apples within that category that are more genetically different from one another than, say, comparing apples and oranges and saying, well, apples and oranges are both fruit, right? So they're all fruit, but there's like variation within the apple. So does a green apple mean something different than a red apple? And what does that mean for the pie that you're making, I guess? It could be the analogy there. So when we think about it, we can say that because race is really an illusion, right? It is, absolutely. It's made up. And I'm going to say that every single video. Race is made up, and it was made up for reasons to harm us. And that includes white people, just in case you didn't know I was talking to you too. I'm talking to you too. Race is harmful to you as well. We'll get to that later. But we know that when we divide people up by race, it doesn't match what science says about race. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is, if we know that people from different races aren't actually very different in terms of our physical bodies, our minds, our ability to function and to connect with one another, why do we still act like they are? I'll keep asking that too. Why do we let these made up categories create so much division in the world? There are reasons for that, and we'll get to that as well. But anyway, that's the foundation of point 2, that there's more genetic variation within groups than between groups. Remember my tagline: keep asking, keep imagining, and remember, you got this.